I will also withdraw the amendment because I'm told it's not germane, but this is to make the work opportunity tax credit permanent. I noticed a number of amendments to make things permanent. In fact, I think there are about 20 of them in total. And this obviously raises this broader issue. Shouldn't we make all these things permanent, at least those that make sense? I certainly believe that. I think this is the wrong way to put together tax policy, as much as we want to be sure that these do not expire. I know you, Mr. Chairman, believe this, that we ought to be doing tax reform, and in the context of that, making things permanent. I think we may have an opportunity to do that later this year. It would be in the context probably of international business reform, not the broad tax reform many of us would like to see. But I do hope that we can, after this markup today, focus on making all of these permanent. I say all of these, not that I support all of them, but the fact is I think on both sides of the aisle we're going to have to make some concessions in order to achieve permanence. And I think that's just much better tax policy and should be done in the context of tax reform. The work opportunity tax credit is one that should certainly be made permanent because it would be so much more effective, just like Section 179 would be for small businesses, or the R&D credit would be for so many American companies that want to depend on it, or the mortgage insurance deduction for our families out there. I mean, they go to their accountants say, this is not permanent, we don't know whether you're going to get it or not, and so it's terrible policy not to make these permanent. On the work opportunity tax credit, this involves helping people who are in a tough situation, people who are in TANF, SNAP, SSI recipients, ex-felons. It gives a preference to hire veterans, the disabled, summer youth employees. The amendment that I would like to offer today and then withdraw is to add to this list of eligible populations, and that would be for an employer hiring someone who has exhausted their 26 weeks of regular unemployment benefits. So it would be for the long-term unemployed. And this is important because we have more and more Americans who are, unfortunately, long-term unemployed. The number of long-term unemployed as a percent of the total unemployed now stands at over 25%, which is historically high, well over the historical average. Studies show, of course, that people out of work this long are less likely to receive calls back. It's harder for them to find a job. And often their unemployment is through no fault of their own, and yet because they're long-term unemployed, they have a tougher time finding a job. So this is one I think that fits very well with what I think all of us would like to do on this committee, which is to help get these people back to work and avoid them doing what unfortunately so many of them do, which is drop out of the workforce altogether. This is one reason we have these levels of labor force participation that are so low that you have to go back to the 1970s before many women were actively in the workforce to find such low levels of workforce participation. So this is exactly the kind of approach that will help to get people back to work, to help create more opportunities for people we represent and more middle-class opportunities in particular in terms of the workforce. So I look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, on our amendment in the modified mark. I appreciate your including the extension. I know the permanence is something that we're going to have to work on going forward. And again, I really look forward to working with you and the ranking member on broader tax reform that includes permanence of these extenders.
Well, thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just very briefly, I just want to thank Senator Portman for his leadership on the work opportunity tax credit and for his leadership to include long-term unemployed as eligible for the work opportunity tax credit. I think is very important. This tool has worked so effectively in getting people employed, and its return is very positive. There's no question about it. And I just want to thank him for his leadership on this issue.